The Undying Heart. The moon hung like a pale torch over the Carpathian mountains, its silver light casting long shadows across the jagged peaks. The ancient castle loomed in the distance, framed by swirling mist. Castle Bran, the fortress of Vlad Dracula, had stood for centuries, bearing witness to the passage of time. Its halls whispered with long-forgotten voices, its stones soaked in the blood of history. Inside the great hall, Dracula sat alone upon his wrought iron throne. The fire sputtered in the hearth, and the only sound was the gentle dripping of water from some unseen crack in the ceiling. He was a creature of power, one who invoked both terror and awe. And yet he was also a man haunted, not by enemies or rivals, but by something deeper, something he could neither conquer nor banish. Loneliness. Though he would never admit it aloud, the curse of immortality had grown unbearable. Decades felt like centuries. The faces of those he'd loved, lost to age or his own ravenous hunger, blurred together in shadows. His once fiery determination for vengeance and supremacy had cooled, leaving a hollow void within his chest. All he had now were the stars, and the unending thirst. The encounter. Far below the slopes of the castle, the town of Bran was alive with laughter and music. The villagers were celebrating their annual harvest festival, lighting torches and dancing in circles on the village green. Among them was Mirela, a young artist with ink-stained fingers and the kind of beauty that made her impossible to forget. Her dark hair framed a heart-shaped face, and her blue eyes gleamed with curiosity that bordered on rebellion. Mirela had grown up listening to tales of vampires and monsters. The villagers warned her about the castle and its lord, whispering tales of blood and darkness. But to Mirela, the warnings only fed her fascination. She was an artist who sought beauty in all things, light and dark, life and death. And this evening, as the moon illuminated the castle in stark relief, Mirela felt an irresistible pull. "I'll be back before dawn," she said to her cousin Anna, who was busy stirring a pot of mulled cider. Anna turned to her, eyes narrowing. "The castle. Curiosity won't kill me." "It could," Anna whispered. "You'd be wise to heed the old stories." Mirela laughed, slipping on her coat. The thick wool would shield her from the chill of the mountain air, but it could not protect her from what watched in the shadows. The climb to the castle was difficult, but Mirela was determined. When she reached the towering gates, she paused, heart pounding. The ironwork was sharp and intricate, curling like vines yet rusted with age. Beyond the gate, the stone path disappeared into darkness, bordered by towering trees. Before she could decide whether to knock or turn away, the gates creaked open. Mirela stepped back, breath hitching as they revealed the shadowed courtyard beyond. "Who dares disturb my solitude?" The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, deep, resonant, and commanding as though the castle itself had spoken to her. I mean no harm," Mirela stammered, her courage faltering for the first time. "I'm an artist. I wanted to see. I've heard so much about this place." The shadows shifted, and from them a figure emerged. He was tall, impossibly tall, with a regal bearing that demanded reverence. His dark hair was pulled back, and his sharp, angular face seemed both timeless and perfect, like a statue carved by the gods. But it was his eyes, amber and burning with an otherworldly light, that held her frozen in place. "Dracula, you are either very brave or very foolish to come here," he said, his voice low and measured. Mirela found herself unable to look away. There was no mistaking this man for a mere mortal. From the way he moved, graceful and silent as smoke, to the aura of power that radiated from him, he was every bit the monster the stories described. And yet Mirela felt no fear, only fascination. I wanted to see for myself," she admitted. He raised a dark brow. "See what?" She hesitated, then said softly, "Beauty." Dracula's lips curved into a humorless smile. "And do you think you found it?" Mirela nodded. "Yes." An unlikely connection. Dracula had every intention of dismissing the girl, or perhaps tasting her, if she proved interesting enough. But something about her drew him in. She was uncommonly bold, yet her curiosity did not come from arrogance. Instead, it rang with sincerity. Mirela wasn't here to challenge him, or out of foolish bravado. She truly sought something. "Follow me," he commanded, turning toward the entrance of the castle. Mirela hesitated only for a moment before stepping through the threshold. The air inside was cool and heavy with the scent of old wood and damp stone. Dracula led her down a corridor lit by flickering candelabras, their flames casting distorted shadows on the walls. "How long have you lived here?" she asked. "Longer than you can imagine." As they walked, Mirela's artist's eyes roamed over the tapestries that adorned the walls, the suits of armor standing sentinel in the corners, and the faded frescoes that hinted at a bygone era of grandeur. Despite the age and decay, there was an undeniable beauty to it all. A beauty tinged with sorrow. When they reached a vast gallery, Draco stopped. The room was filled with treasures, paintings, sculptures, ornate mirrors, though they reflected nothing of their owner, and relics from centuries past. "This is your collection?" Mirela asked. "It is." She approached a painting of a young woman with flaxen hair and an angelic smile. Her fingers hovered over the canvas, careful not to touch. "She's beautiful," Mirela said softly. "Who was she?" Dracula's expression darkened. "She was my wife." Mirela turned to him, surprised by the raw emotion in his voice. "What happened to her?" "She died," he said simply. But there was a weight to those two words that spoke of an agony far greater than Mirela could comprehend. "Many centuries ago." "I'm sorry." He waved a hand dismissively, though there was no denying the pain that lingered in his amber eyes. For the first time in centuries, Dracula felt something stir within him, a flicker of warmth, of connection. He had had many lovers over the years, drawn to him like moths to a flame, but they had always been fleeting and hollow. Mirela was different. She didn't cower or flatter or scheme. She simply saw him. A dangerous attraction. Over the next several nights, Mirela continued to return to the castle, drawn by a force she couldn't explain. And each time Dracula found himself waiting for her, eager in a way that both thrilled and terrified him. He began to share pieces of his past, stories of battles fought and kingdoms lost, of love and betrayal, of darkness and power. Mirela listened with rapt attention, sketching in her notebook as he spoke. She captured the curve of his jaw, the sharpness of his cheekbones, the shadows that seemed to cling to him like a second skin. "You're not what I expected," she told him one evening as they stood on the castle's balcony, the moonlight painting them in silver. "And what did you expect? A monster. And do you see a monster now?" Mirela studied him, her gaze unwavering. "No. I see a man." Her words struck him like a blow. He had been called many things over the centuries, beast, demon, predator, but never a man, never human. "If you knew the things I've done," he said, his voice low and dangerous, "you would not be so kind." "Maybe not," Mirela admitted, "but I think there's more to you than the darkness." Dracula turned away, gripping the stone railing so hard it cracked. "You don't understand what I am, what I've become." "Then help me understand," she whispered, stepping closer. The scent of her blood, warm, vibrant, impossibly alive, filled his senses, awakening the hunger he fought to suppress. He wanted her. Not just her blood, but her light, her warmth, her kindness. He wanted to drown in her until he remembered what it felt like to be human. But that was impossible. He was not a man. Not anymore. "You,"